20 years ago. And it started off from tutoring, and then it became really successful. And from tutoring, it became into a sort of from home tutoring, it became to a center. So started tutoring from a center, and then it turned into a school. And then when it turned into a school, that was my former school, Cardiff Sixth Form College. It became top in the country. So that was, I think it formed into a school in 2008. It then topped the league table in 2010, and then for 9 years consecutively it was number one on the league table. So I think for me that was like a big journey itself, because I didn't plan to go into teaching. First of all, I didn't plan to set up a school, and certainly I had no ambition, or I didn't envisage the school becoming top in the league table, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of schools in this country who have tradition, of being the very, very top, and those schools normally fluctuate on the league table. These are the very top sort of traditional sort of schools with 800 years of history, for example. There's a lot of history and tradition that goes into English education, British education. So for me, it was like, I've never envisaged that. And when the school became top in the country, that was like a turning point for me, because that showed that, there's a lot of things that still need to be achieved. And that's the journey that I started off with, with creating a different kind of model of education. And I think the success of that model has been down to the fact that I've been able to incorporate what I've learned coming from Malaysia, but also incorporate that sort of learning from the UK. So I've been able to combine the best of the East and the best of the West, I think. And I think that's been the magical formula. But on top of that, I think the other formula around that is really personal development, because our model is basically on the basis that all our students are treated as champions as soon as they arrive, and our teachers are treated as they are the best teachers in the world. So I think having that mentality of that sports mentality within education, I think that's really, does make a difference, especially when it comes to that mental resilience. I think that's been one of the key paradigm, in terms of the shift in the model. Obviously, there's a lot of things that goes into it. There's a lot of strategy that goes into it. There's a lot of care and that goes into this kind of model, especially because, like I said, we were the new kid on the block compared to the schools who have these years of tradition. And that's why, and I think the model has been very successful, 9 years consecutively. And then I left Cardiff Sixth Form College in 2016. Beginning of 2017. I joined Oxford International College in 2017. Oxford International College, prior to my sort of involvement, was traditionally, the model was one-to-one tuition. So it wasn't sort of a school or a college. It was more like a one-to-one. It was a school in the sense that it didn't offer the group sessions. It was more, the modeling was more on a one-to-one basis. So when I came in 2017, it sort of, I brought the elements of the academic excellence and the career development from my previous experience. I brought that to OIC, but also because of where OIC is and the links that Oxford International College have with top universities, I think because of its location, because of the people who are involved in Oxford International College are mainly, graduates of top universities themselves, in particular Oxford University. So because of those kind of links and connections and things, I think we've been able to enhance the career development program a lot more than in my previous school. And also OIC, when I came, I found that their welfare proposition was very, very strong. They were very strong in pastoral. So the combination of the academic excellence, the career development, and the pastoral development has been fantastic. And I think that's one of the key USP of my new model of learning kind of thing, you know. So just to sort of summarize, I started off with the philosophy of education on the basis of what I thought was lacking in Britain, and I've combined that with my sort of the East meets West kind of the best of the East and the best of the West, and combine that formula into what I created at my first school, and then coming to OIC was a different challenge for me, because I was now a change agent, and I had to change the, you know, whereas Cardiff Sixth Form College, I created that, I founded that, it was, you know, I nurtured that. At Oxford International College, I came in 2017. The college has been running since 2002, so I became a change agent, and changing that, you know, but also keeping the strength of what the institution is all about, the welfare, the pastoral. So I think what I have learned through my journey is the elements of taking the best philosophies of education and how do you combine that into one culture, one ethos, and I think that's been brilliant, because where OIC stands now, so I joined in 2017. In 2018 it topped it topped the league table for England, but in 2019 it topped the league table for the whole of UK. So you know, OIC is now #1 on the league tables for A-level results, and my former school is #2. So it's great to see that two of my creation and my sort of, you know, the development that I've had have been able to top the league tables, and also through that journey I have won various awards. In 2011 I won the Best Science Tutor of the Year award. I received that award from David Cameron. 2015 I won the Welsh Business Award. But I think for me, it's not so much the league table that counts. I know a lot of people measure success based on a quantitative measure, and that's obviously, that's how, you know, that's how the society prevails. But for me, it's more the career development, the students' ability to be able to progress to where they want to go to. I think that's really crucial. I have many stories of students when they first joined, they would have been written off by other schools because they didn't meet the kind of profile of a typical successful student. You know, I had a student from Turkey, because the academic background was different. When he first started, he was getting like C's and D's in his papers, but he ended up getting A star, A star, A star, A, and he got into Imperial. But this kid would have been written off. Any other school, they would written him off because the profile doesn't fit, you know. I had a student from Albania. When he first came, he struggled in some of the subjects. In particular, again, he has an interest in engineering, and he found that he was behind compared to students from Hong Kong, and he couldn't keep up with them. And when he came to me after 1 month, he said to me, look, you know, I really can't keep up with this. I think it's you know, I can't do these. The Hong Kong students are 10 times ahead of me, you know. And I said to him, look, we can either give up, or we can either persevere and strategize and see what comes out. What have you got to lose, you know, by just making an attempt out of this. Now this kid got into Cambridge, and not only he got into Cambridge, he had full scholarship, you know, and he's graduated a few years ago. He's now working, he's doing really well, and it's so fantastic to see these stories of these students who probably would have never thought they were able to achieve, you know, and would have been written off because they're not a typical sort of, you know, profile of student, and yet they are so successful at the end. Look, I have a fantastic team that really teaches and nurtures the students on a daily basis. My role is really to make sure that my team have the right platform to be able to engage with the students better, and for my students to be given the opportunity to be able to get that support from my team. So I think that's sort of my role, is to make sure that on a daily basis they're getting the input. But my vision and my ethos is very clear in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And I think one of the things that like I said, I always tell my students, if you want to be successful, if you want to be successful in whatever you do, there's two things important. You have to think with your head and you have to think with your heart. If you can think with your head and your heart, not only you will be getting what you want, you'll be happy. You know, that's the thing. You know, because a lot of people just think with their head because they just want to get a grades, get a job. You know, a lot of children are tuned in that way. So I always tell my students, forget about just the head. Try to combine both your head and your heart. Your heart first, and then your head. So your heart tells you your passion. Your head tells you the strategy. Not the other way around. It's not how you start your process, it's how you end it and how you enjoy that process throughout. And I think that's paramount. Unfortunately, we live in a very data-driven society where everything is measured, and students are measured on grades. And I keep telling students not to measure themselves on grades, because what's more important is the next progression in life. So, you know, that career development, that university placements, I think it's more important. So, you know, we're not chasing after students having to get 4 A stars or 5 A stars or whatever, because at the end of the day, I'd rather student work out in their head what is their plan in the next 5 years. You know, which university they want to go to, what course they want to do, and also where do they intend to work, because I think that's quite important. So we have a global strategic pathway where students are applying not just to the UK, our students apply all around the world. It's important, like we have a girl currently who have had all UK offers to top universities, G5 universities, the very top universities, but yet she's chosen to go to Japan. She has an offer from university in Japan, and the reason why is because she see that to be her plan in terms of where she wants to work and live and things. So it's sometimes it's important, even kids at the age of 16, 17, 18, and you know, it's obviously they're very, very young in terms of knowing what's going to be their next pathway. But I think it's important to engage with young people to understand where is their progression, where do they want to go to, what is the, you know, I mean, a plan can change, a plan can evolve. I think failure is actually very important. I actually think failure is important, and I think parents need to recognize that failure is important. But I think it's very hard for parents. I'm a mother. My son is 7 years old, and when he makes a mistake, I'm like, oh, why did you make a mistake? You know, when he's when he's doing his work, and he's doing his maths work or his English work, you know, and I'm like, oh, this is so easy. Why you need to get it right, you know? So I think we are in us, we are entrenched as parents, as society. We want our children to do well, and we want them to get everything right, you know, and we don't want them to ever suffer, and we want them to do well. And I think that's in our mind, that's mentally, that's how we are. I'm sure, you know, as parents, you know, we always want that. The difficulty around that is that when the kids don't learn to fail, the problem is they don't know how to deal with it when they do fail. And I think that's the biggest issue. And that's a problem. You know, I give you a story of this girl who she had in her first year of A-level, she had C's and D's in her AS results. And she's from another school. So she came to me and she said, look, I got these results. You know, I really want to get into medical school. I don't know what to do. So I said to her, you got two choices. Either you can go for another biomedical degree and you can go into graduate entry later on, or you can restart again, you know, restart again. It's painful painful. It is painful to restart again, because your friends have all gone. You have to go back a year and stuff. But I said to her, at the end of the day, what is more important? You have to decide what is more important to you, because you have to decide whether the end goal in terms of where you want to go, progression, career development, is that more important for you, or the fact that socially you will be different. So you've got to accept one or the other two things, and it's going to be painful. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be easy. It is painful. And she decided to take the year again. And she ended up getting 2 A stars, 1A, and she had 3 medical offers. Wow. And now she is in medical school. Now, so sometimes that pain is actually good. But I don't like kids going to school just for the sake of going to school, because I think that's just a wrong concept of education. If you look back in history, people went to school because they want to educate themselves. They wanted their minds to be engaged. They wanted to really, there's a curiosity for learning. Yet I think now we go to school because we have to. Our kids go to school because they have to go to school, because they have to get a job, they have to get fantastic results. And I think that's the problem with that. So I think one of the areas of the success is that we actually don't chase after results. On the contrary, I know a lot of people think we do because of the league table position, but on the contrary, we don't. We really focus on career development. We really focus on making sure that the 3 pillars, academic excellence, career development, and personal development, we make sure that those 3 pillars are parallel importance. They have parallel importance. I would say it would be the career development, because the students that we get at the college, the age range, I think the next progression in their life is a lot more important. So it's very crucial to provide them the strategy, and not just strategy in terms of how to get into top universities, but also strategy mentally as well. How do you actually get, how do you actually break through these barriers? Sometimes I think for Hong Kong parents, they're very, very keen for their children to do very well. They're very keen for their kids to go to top universities and things. But I think a lot of parents, they feel like they're not on the same level as their kids. So I think one of the things that I found throughout this journey is being able to motivate the students, being able to inspire the students, I think has perhaps in some ways have been able to reconnect the kids and their parents a little bit more in terms of the journey. There has to be an element of preparing Hong Kong students for personal development as well. So I think there has to be a balance moving forward. I always tell parents, stress is bad, pressure is good. We have to teach our kids to deal with pressure, but stress is bad. We don't want them to be, stress is a medical term, but pressure is fine. They need to be able to learn how to deal with pressure. And I think parents have to be open to the fact that if the kids need to repeat a year, that's okay. If the kids have to take a gap year, that's okay. If the kids don't want to go to a G5, if I had a boy a long time ago who got an offer from Oxford, also had an offer from UCL, but he wanted to do astronomy, and Oxford didn't offer that particular space module compared to UCL, and he chose UCL over Oxford because of the specific course that he wanted to do. So I think, sometimes you have to give some merits to students who are able to think, for themselves rather than just trying to be part of a system. I think that's very, very important. So I thought it was brilliant that this young man who had an offer from Oxford chose UCL over Oxford because there was a module or a specific area that he was really interested in, and it wasn't offered by Oxford, but UCL offered it. So he chose UCL because of that, and it was fantastic. fantastic to see that. Failure is very important for kids, actually. I think it's important for them to learn to fail and to deal with that failure. But I also think it's important for parents to acknowledge that if it takes longer for your child to get to where they want to go to, if they need to repeat the year, if they need to take a gap year, if they need to select the university based on the course, based on the destination of where they want to go to, leave it to them. Because I think once the kids have made up their mind, I normally tell students 3 things important. First is you need to find your passion. Really important. Discover your passion, and then find the evidence to back your passion. So what is triggering your passion? Find evidence. And you can't just turn up one day and say, I want to be a doctor, and you have no evidence to back your passion. So it's very important. And the third thing is strategy. What is the best strategy to get to the outcomes that you're looking for? So there are 3 things that's really crucial. So once a child has discovered their passion, I think our role as teacher and parents is just to advise. I think that's there. But I mean, I think so. I think a role of a parent and a teacher is to help the children to discover their passion. Once they've discovered their passion, then you can only advise them. You shouldn't put on them that they have to go to G5 universities. They have to do this course. You can't put on them. And I think the good thing about the society is that I think most parents are becoming that. They are becoming a lot more open to the idea that it's okay for their children to do, as I've seen a trend. I've seen a trend of the last 15 to 20 years where parents are becoming more acceptable to those sort of changes. However, I think the issue is, as parents, we cannot hide our disappointments when it doesn't go to our way, and that's the bit that we have to work on, because children can pick it up very quickly. They can pick up whether we're disappointed or whether we're happy about certain decisions that they make. So I think it's because we are so grounded ourselves. My generation, for example, we work really hard because we didn't have a lot of things. We didn't have the my parents worked very hard to put food on the table, and I work very hard to build materialistic value in terms of life, because we didn't have those things. We didn't have those things growing up, so we want to do even more. But our children will not need to have the same level of materialism that we've had, because we have done that work. Our grandparents have done the work, we've done the work, but our children now need to learn based on their own curiosity, because the way the world is going at the moment, the young people are getting involved in more things that, if you look at Brexit, for example, if you look at the economy, you look at the situation with COVID-19, the disruption, young people are going through a lot more challenges than any other generation before. So I think we have to let them, we have to support them and let them decide on the next. We shouldn't put additional criteria of success, of measurement of success, because I think those measurements are wrong in today's world. I would define resilient. I would say resilience in 3 ways. Firstly, I would say resilience is about acceptance, acceptance of your strength, of your weaknesses, that allows you to plan, allows you to be able to think about the next steps. The second thing I would say, resilience is not about being strong all the time, but also accepting that there will be a degree of vulnerability. Resilience means the ability to be vulnerable. And it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to take your time. And even if it takes longer, you don't have to be in a race. That's the thing. You don't have to be in a race. This is a marathon, not a race. So, they just need to take their time. The end result is what's important. It doesn't matter if it takes you a year longer. It doesn't matter if you don't get into your first choice of university. If you don't get to Oxford, but you get into Imperial, that's equally very, very good. So it's basically vulnerability, accepting that there's a degree of vulnerability. The third thing I would say about resilience is always finding your feet even when the odds are against you. If you are willing to take some risk and go outside of your comfort zone, and you're able to try the new things and not be worried about failure, then you become successful in it on your own right. And success doesn't have to be determined by matrices that other people determine. You can determine your own success. Like my I believe in this, that my success is not the league table or the university placement. My success is the ability for me to remember my students' stories, my students' journey. I think that will take me a long time, you know, that will be with me for a very long time. But I can write a book about every of all my students. It doesn't matter if they don't remember me, it doesn't matter, but I remember their journey. So I think that to me is success, because that means that I enjoy what I'm doing, you know, because otherwise I can do 9 to 5 job. I go back home, you know, and that's it. I don't, you know, it's just a job. But for me, the ability to remember my students' journey, I think is to me is what defined my success. I think it's hard for students to appreciate that, because it's because for teenagers, for example, they're only concerned about their next progression. But I think in 10 years time, after they've, you know, gone to university, start working, then they start reflecting back, and you think, you know what, everything was okay, you know, everything is okay, everything will work out. I have always been very ambitious as a young child, and I always wanted to do well. And the concept of failure was unknown to me when I was growing up, because I always did well in school. I did well, you know, in everything. I was in lots of activities. I was like one of the top student. Um, so, you know, you were asking about failure. I don't think the concept of failure was something that I envisaged, because I was a very good student, you know, and I worked really hard. Studying was everything to me. And then when I came to the UK, and when life changed and you become an adult, you know, from a high school student to becoming a university, and then, you know, becoming an adult, that's when, you know, I started to reflect upon my own sort of learning. And it changed, everything changed, you know, when you reach that level where you can no longer be in your comfort zone of just studying, you suddenly start to grow up, and you become even wiser. And I think that's the difference. Education doesn't necessarily give you wisdom. Experience gives you wisdom. That's why I keep telling my students, the more experience you have, the more wiser you become as a person. And you don't just get that wisdom through books, you know, you get that wisdom by living through certain experiences, talking to people, networking. Reading is important, but also networking, speaking, communicating, understanding each other, you know, those kind of things. So I think my first 16 years, 17 years of my life has been more about sort of being the best I can in studying, in education, in school, in activities and stuff. That was my focus. Then when I came to the UK, I started to grow up as a person. Then when I started to realize where life pathway takes you, that's when I started facing lots of challenges, you know, failures, started, you know, facing all those things. And I have to say that when I first started my journey, by setting up and founding the school, it was very difficult period, because I never had experience. I was not a teacher. I didn't train to become a teacher. I didn't have any help from any other school or any other organization. There was no coaching or mentoring or whatever. I didn't know anybody, you know, I didn't know anyone. I wasn't in the circle. So for me, it was like an organic thing that happened. And it just happened because you know, people wanted, there was a demand, and people wanted my help, and people wanted me to teach them, you know, because the parents were coming, and the students were saying, we want you, we really want you to help our children. And so it just, it drove, because I found that there was something I can do to help, you know. So I think one of the things that I found is, um, I think sometimes when you plan too much, when you have a plan, you go to university, you're gonna get this job and everything. When you plan too much, sometimes it doesn't happen the way that you plan, because sometimes what happens is something in your life turns up, and and people want your help, and people want you to be part of what of their journey. And I think that was very humbling for me. It was very humbling when I remember when I was tutoring from home, there were 6 parents who came to me, and these 6 parents said, can you please teach our children full-time homeschooling? And I was taken aback, because they wanted to remove their kids from their schools to be taught completely by me in my house. I don't have any facility, I have nothing, I have no lab, nothing. So for me, it was like, you really want to do that? And they said, yes, we want to have our students being taught by you. So that was a humbling experience, because even if one person in the world trusts you as a person to say, I trust you to help me, I think that is a great honor, even if one person says that. So I think that was a great honor. So for me, that was a turning point. I was like, wow, I can do this, I can help people. And it sort of became successful because it was driven by that passion, wanting to help, wanting to assist, wanting to create something different, wanted to. And these 6 kids were kids who were not doing well in their schools, who were not fitting into their traditional schools. They were not fitting in, and they came and they did really well. They had like A's and A stars, and they got into really competitive courses like medicine and veterinary and dentistry. They did really, really well. And that to me was like, wow, these kids didn't fit in the mainstream school, and yet when they came to me and I was able to help them, they got to where they want to go to. And I thought, for me, that was like, wow, this is the kind of education that I want to provide for the kids who feel that they don't fit in, for the kids who are not part of the mainstream education, that they're still able to be successful. I think that was like an eye-opener for me. So I think from then onwards, I faced a lot of challenges. I have faced a lot of hurdles. I have failed many, many times. But I still remember to that day the fact that if one person can trust you to make a difference in their lives. And I've had many students now. I have, over the last 20 years, I have now sent God knows how many students to medical school, 300 plus students to medical school, around 300 students to G5 universities. I've sent students all around the world. And the fact that every child, every parent, every family has trusted for me to be part of their journey. So I would say the person that I've become is purely because I was given the opportunity to help and make a difference. I was given that opportunity. I took that opportunity, even though it was different, even though I didn't have to. I could have just got a job and carried on life, but I took that opportunity. I took that risk. But also it's very fulfilling for me. I think it's very fulfilling. I have a lot more wisdom today than I had 5 years ago, than I had 10 years ago, because you just learn as you grow into the person you become. The other thing that really helped is that obviously my mother is a very strong woman herself. She's my role model. So because she's very highly resilient, I've just learned from her how to be resilient, how to deal with problems, how to deal with challenges. And I think for all of us, I'm sure all of our parents are, all role models in some way or form. And I think that's really made me the person I am. You can never be the person you are completely, because every day is your learning. COVID-19, obviously, it's caused a lot of disruption. I think it's just taught us to be more humble. And I think it has given a new definition of kindness, what kindness means, you know. And I think we have all, I think in my experience, I feel that as a community we're becoming more kinder towards each other. So that was a lesson to be learned in some form. And I think you know, we can either take this situation, is obviously, like I said, is really bad situation for a lot of people around the world who have been affected directly from COVID, but also there are people, a lot of people who have been affected indirectly in one way or the other. But and I think it's even more unfair for the young people, because young people are the one who are most likely to lose their jobs, you know, if they're in that position, or they are, you know, affected with their plans, their education, their, you know, their all those things are disrupted. And I think it's very hard for me to actually advise anybody through that, because nobody can be in another person's shoes, what they're going through. All I can say is this is what I'm telling my students, is again, if you're resilient, you have to accept the situation, you have to accept it as it is, because there's nothing that nobody can do. And the only thing you can do is during this time, utilize this time to build yourself, to find yourself, discover yourself, you know, and continue to move forward, because that's what life teaches us. Life tells us the show must go on, you know, and life has to continue. So I think that's the major thing for us, is we have to continue, we have to move on, you know, and in one way or the other. And moving on doesn't mean that you just become strong and you forget about everything. Moving on again means that it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to be upset, and it's okay to be angry, and it's okay that we are you know, there's been disruption, it's affected your family, it's affected yourself. But at the same time, I think it's important to acknowledge that if you need to get help, if you need that counseling, if you need that interaction with somebody else, then do get help. Very important to seek help. Don't just be, you know, don't just suffer yourself and not seek for help. Talk to somebody, talk to people, get help. There's so many people around the world who are willing to help. There's so many different organizations. There's lots of people around the world who just, first thing is make sure get help, you know, if you need to get help. And then the second thing I would say is just, if possible, move forward, plan ahead, just move forward, you know. That, I think but it's a very difficult time. I completely understand, you know. And I think it's made you realize how important family is. It's made us more kinder, I think. So universe has taught us a few things, but at the same time, I think we have to be prepared in the future that this doesn't, you know, if this does happen again, then we are armed better. I think what you guys are doing are fantastic. I think the topic around resilience, and the topic around you know, the whole thing about mental resilience, and what does that mean? I think that's a really big thing, and I think the more we can teach our children, and I think we should incorporate that even from primary school. You know, I don't think we should wait until the kids grow up and then suddenly saying you've got to learn to be resilient. I think we have to engage with children even from primary school to get them to understand how to be resilient. You know, what does that mean? So I think a lot of training has to be involved in that, and I think organizations like yourselves starting off these platforms is very important.